Welcome to day 6 of Shadowhunters month, and today it's another top 10 video, and this is top 10 characters I wish we'd seen more of. So, there's always, in anything you watch or read really, there's kind of a background character, or a character who isn't quite, the main focus, or a character who should be the main focus, but doesn't get given anything to do. There's always those kind of characters that we kind of wish had more focus, and we wish had a bigger role to play in things, and we wish we could see more of all the time. Kind of like, for example, that's not on Shadowhunters, Luna Lovegood in Harry Potter franchise. Would have loved to have seen loads of her, have there be 4, main people running around trying to find Horcruxes, and have Luna come along with them. That kind of thing. And there are loads of characters like that in the Shadowhunters Chronicles verse that I would love to have gotten to know better, or see a lot more of, or hopefully we'll see more of one day. So that's kind of where the idea for this list came from, because I wanted to give a shout out to some of the characters who were taken from us too soon, or just got put in the background and weren't given anything to do, even though they deserved the spotlight. And for this top 10, it's not solely focused on the show, it's not solely focused on the books, it's kind of a mix of both. I've kind of combined all the mediums together for this one list. So there may be characters in the show, in the list, that get screen time or page time in the books. Is that how that works? I don't know. But maybe got wasted on the show, or vice versa. So I kind of did that, and also some occasions the characters I'm talking about are completely tied in every way. So I would just be like, well, joint something, but it would be like at 7 and 8 it's these two, even though they're like equal billing. So are still like 10 characters I'm talking about, but some are on equal billing, so I'm just going to talk about them together at the same time, if that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense now, it will when I kind of get into the countdown, which I should probably do now, because I'm rambling. So yeah, let's get right into this top 10. So at number 10 in my list of characters I wish we'd seen more of, it's Lilith. This can be said for the TV show and the books, I think. In the TV show, she was kind of the main antagonist of 3A, the first half of Season 3, and we kind of saw her get defeated and banished back to her demon realm in the 3A finale. So it's kind of like her role's over, and now Jonathan's back to kind of be the main villain of the show again. And it was mainly due to Anna Hopkins' amazing performance throughout 3A that I really, really loved Lilith. I thought she was okay in the books. She got a lot more screen time in the show than she did in the books. But I was obsessed with her as a villain. I thought she was really powerful, really strong, an amazing screen presence, an amazing threat. And I was kind of sad to see her defeated in 3A. But you never know, we could see her again, so that's always good. And that's kind of why she creeped onto this list, because I really do hope we see her again on the show. Because I think she was well used while she was on the show, but because she was so good, I want to see more. So fingers crossed for that. And obviously in the book, she's only in one of them, from what I can remember. She's like the big bad of book 4, City of Fallen Angels, which is mainly what season 3 so far has been based on. But she was kind of just in the background and being mentioned a lot, and she didn't physically appear much at all from what I can remember. I definitely remember her having this huge final confrontation in a similar vein to the 3A finale. She got defeated in the same way, trying to attack Simon. The Mark of Cain kind of got her and stuff, which I always thought was a very clever resolution to that. But she really didn't have the presence in the book that she did in the show. So I would have kind of seen a lot more of her in the book and given a lot more backstory and stuff, which I feel like the show kind of corrected. But I'd love to see her back in the show, so I'd love to see more of her there. And I would have been interested to see her get like a beefier role in the books as well. So that's why Lilith is on the list. At number 9 on the list, it's Jocelyn Fairchild. This is more the show than the books, even though Jocelyn isn't like a main character in the books. In the show and the book, she kind of starts off, you know, she gets attacked, then she's in this like coma-induced state for a while, then she needs waking up. And I think it's not until book 3 that she actually wakes up, and from then on she shows up for the rest of the Mortal Instruments series. Not in a huge way, but she has her part to play, she has her role, and stuff like that. So when she woke up at the end of season 1, it's kind of surprising, because that was a lot earlier in terms of timeline to have her wake up than in the books. So I thought, oh, maybe they're going to give her a really big role and she's going to do a lot more. Then 4 episodes later they killed her. Never mind. So yeah, this is definitely more aimed at the show Jocelyn. I would like to see more of her, because I thought Maxine Roy did a really good job at the part when she was there. Still sorry that they killed her off in the show, because it closed more doors than it opened in terms of stories, in my opinion. And I would have loved to have seen what they would have done with Jocelyn on the show. Maybe she can come back in like a dream sequence, or they'll find some bizarre way of resurrecting her. I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm always going to be kind of sad that the TV show Jocelyn never got the time of day she deserved. Never got the scenes with Clary and Jason, Jonathan, that I think book fans almost kind of deserved to see, which is a shame. So yeah, that's why Jocelyn's on the list. At number 8, it's the Inquisitor, Imogen Herondale, aka Jace's grandmother. This is an interesting one. I will say, I feel like she gets more to do in the show than the books. She's kind of almost an antagonist in the book for a bit, and almost as soon as she finds out that Jace is her grandson, she dies. And Jace doesn't find out that she's his grandmother until she's dead, so they never really get that bond and time to connect, which they do in the show, and I really, really liked that. So it's definitely kind of more in the books. I wish we'd seen a bit more of her, and a bit more of that relationship with Jace develop. And while the show got that chance as well, I still feel like they killed her so soon in such a tragic way, so I'd love to have seen more of her crop up in both the books and the show, because it would have been interesting to explore this family dynamic with Jace. But obviously neither medium kind of chose to explore that completely, which is kind of a shame. But I understand the tragedy behind it, which is kind of why she's only at number 8 on the list. But I felt there's a lot of potential for some really interesting stuff there, and a lot of development for Jace as a character. So it kind of sucks that we never saw more of her in the book or the show. At number 7 on the list, it's Marius Lightwood, however you want to pronounce that name. I always change how I say it. I do feel like this is more aimed at the show, but I feel like we've seen a lot of her in the show, and I'm really happy about that. It's just because I love her so much in the show, and I love Nicola's performance in the show, that I kind of wish she was like a main cast member, because I just want her around all the time. That's how much I love her. So that's kind of why it's not a complaint that we don't see enough of her in the show, because I think she gets a decent amount of screen time when she appears. I just wish she was there all the time, because I love her so much in the show. And as for the books, I think she has her fair shout. You could have seen her a bit more, but honestly I was kind of happy with how much she's appeared in the book so far, because I love the TV version of her more than the book version, so I'm okay with the level of we saw her in the books, whereas I'm almost like aching for more of her in the show just because I love her so much. So this is the first kind of tie I was talking about, because I couldn't really order these two, so I'm kind of just putting them all together in this one slot. So at number 5 and 6, it's Ragnar and Katarina loss. This is, again, the show and the books. I would like to see more of both of these in there. Not as much the books, I would say, because we have Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy, where they both turn up, I believe. They're definitely both in the Bane Chronicles. They show up quite often in that. And we hear like litters of them throughout the Mortal Instruments and beyond. So I really, really, really loved seeing them in the books, and kind of the trio of those two with Magnus I've always loved, and I eat up any chance we see of those, which is kind of why I enjoyed the Bane Chronicles as much as I did. But again, because that bond with the three of them, because they'd known each other for so long, like hundreds of years, because that bond was so unique and so special, and I love the interactions between all three of them, I'd have loved a whole series or a whole trilogy of books just about those three. So again, I'm happy with what we got of them in the books, but I still would have craved more, and I would love them to have like a more substantial role. But obviously, just like the show, Ragnar's dead, so whoops. And then in the show, obviously we've seen Katarina pop up a few times since near the end of season 2, and she's shown up a couple of times in season 3 as well. But hopefully we'll see a lot more of her. I think we will, especially with the inclusion of Madsy in the show. And I'm really liking what we've seen of her in the show so far, so I am hoping we see more of her and her get more of a substantial part, because I absolutely love Katarina. And I think if I did have to rank them like 5 and 6, I would say 5 would probably be Ragnar, because I kind of would have liked to see much more of him in the show, because obviously we only ever saw him in season 1 episode 12, Malik, where he dies, and we didn't really get much more of him from that, because after that we didn't see him, whereas Katarina in the show has showed up in quite a few episodes, so I feel like we didn't quite get enough of Ragnar in the show, which is a bit of a shame, but that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. But yeah, just because I love those two and Magnus as a trio so much, I'd always be happy to see more of that, be it on the page or on the screen. So number 4 on the list is kind of completely based on the show, because this is a character who was created for the show, and that is Lydia Branwell, who was kind of brought in to kind of come between Malik for a bit until the end of season 1, so we could have the big wedding episode, which of course we all love, and I loved her attitude to it. I feel like we had the potential for a really, really great character in Lydia for the show. And obviously I like to see more of her in the books, because they could just introduce her in the books because she's not in them, but this is definitely more about the show. She could have been a really cool character if she stuck around for longer, but obviously in Day of Wrath she got injured, and then she went away to recover, and we haven't seen her again since then, which sucks, because I really liked her, and I liked the actress, and I liked kind of what they were doing with her. I thought they were kind of giving her her own kind of story outside of, you know, everything with Malik when that whole thing ended. So I was excited to see what they were going to do with her, but then they just wrote her out and never brought her back, which is a shame. I feel like it's a lot of wasted potential, and I would love to see her come back into the show. I don't think she will now, but just because I really did warm up to her throughout season 1 and the start of season 2, I was really, really liking her and really invested in where her story might go. It was a shame that we never really explored her further, so I would love to see her again. And then this is another kind of tie, because these are two characters who are intrinsically linked together in the Shadowverse. I'd say it's probably more of the books for this one, but that's because one of them hasn't even shown up in the show yet. I mean, they will, because we know for sure that they'll both be in 3B, and we've seen one of them in the show already last season. But yeah, I'll talk about it more now, I suppose. But at 2 and 3, it's Helen Blackthorne and Aline or Aline Penhallow. I really love the relationship between Helen and Aline, but it's always kind of been in the background with these two, which is so unfortunate, which is why I'm hoping in 3B we'll kind of get a lot more interaction with the two of them. So yeah, in the books, they're kind of related to some of the core families that the Shadowhunter Chronicles follow, so we should kind of spend loads of time with them, but if things happened with the Clave and laws and everything, and they kind of got sent away to their own little island to live together, so they weren't really there for like the main action, and they've only briefly shown up in a lot of moments, which is a big shame. But events kind of happened in more recent books that hopefully mean certainly Helen can show up a bit more. We have briefly got glimpses of them in other things like Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy and stuff like that, but they've never been main characters at all in the books. I feel like we still don't really know them well enough yet, so I'd love to see the books give them a lot more development, maybe even like a short story to themselves or something would be great. So I'd love to see more of them in the books. In terms of the show, Aline has shown up in season 2 near the end, because it's obviously Sebastian Verlac's cousin, but at the time Jonathan was kind of disguised as Sebastian, but we saw Aline show up there, and Aline did have quite a big role in her defence in City of Glass, which is book 3 of the Mortal Instruments, but after that she didn't show up quite as much. But yeah, we saw Aline quite briefly in an episode in season 2, and I'm pretty sure she's back in 3B, and they've confirmed for sure that Helen has shown up, because we've seen pictures of her like in behind the scenes stuff for 3B, so we know they're both going to be showing up in the second half of the season, which is great. I'm hoping to get a lot more screen time, because we've only really been teased with them so far, and of course we haven't even seen them interact in the show yet, so I'm really excited to see how they handle the couple on the show, because these two characters are in a relationship. So I'm really excited to see how it's going to work on the show, because I really love the Blackthorn family and Shadowhunters. I've grown very attached to them after reading the last few books. And Helen, ooh, I've lost my voice. Helen's brothers, Julian and Mark, are two of my favourite characters in the whole Shadowhunter Chronicles. So I'm hoping we get to see a lot more of these two in 3B, and in future books as well. And at number 1, it's an odd one, because when they appeared in the Shadowhunters Chronicles, and they haven't appeared in the show, they almost certainly never will, because this was set after the Mortal Instruments was over, because this is a character from Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy, and he was a main character in all of those short stories, but that is George Lovelace. So yeah, he was a main character and kind of Simon's best friend throughout the whole of the 10 Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy short stories. We got to know him really well. He was always present and stuff like that. We got a really good kind of deep look into him. Obviously, spoilers are coming. And then we get to the final story in Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy, where Simon ascends to become a Shadowhunter, and George goes through the ceremony as well. But obviously when you go through the ceremony, you either become a Shadowhunter or you die because you're like not worthy, whatever. And unfortunately, after Simon became a Shadowhunter, and there were talks of him and George maybe becoming Parabatai, George didn't survive the process and died, and it was very, very sad. And in his honour, Simon adopted the surname Lovelace when he became a Shadowhunter, so his official Shadowhunter name is Simon Lovelace now, which I thought was really nice. And when he adopts that name and everything, he does briefly see George's ghost, and it's a really beautiful sequence. So it's not that we didn't see enough of George when he was like a main character in Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy, it's that I just really would have loved him to become a Shadowhunter so we could stick around in like the main series of books and we could have seen what he was up to. It's just a tragedy that he died too soon. So I really like what they did with him and his story. I'm satisfied with how it all played out. It's just because he was such a cool character and such an interesting and funny character. It's a shame that he died, and it's tragic. It moved Simon's story along, but it's the what if. You know, what if George had survived and became a Shadowhunter and stuck around? Could have been interesting. But, you know, we're never going to know, because they can't really bring him back in that way. But because of that whole what if situation, for me, that's why George had to be number one. So those were my top 10 characters I'd wished we'd seen more of in the whole Shadowhunters verse, books, TV show, etc. So yeah, if you agreed or disagreed with my choices, let me know. I'd be really interested in wondering who your kind of unsung heroes of the Shadowhunters kind of verse are. Because there were plenty of characters that didn't quite make the cut that I would love to have seen more of. Mainly villains, but I kind of wanted to focus on the hero aspect for this list. But yeah, overall, I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you enjoyed my list. And yeah, until the next video, thanks for watching.